This episode of Talking Law is brought to you by Addleshaw Goddard. Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Talking Law from Women in the Law UK. I'm Sally Penni, MBE, a barrister at Kenworthy's Chambers in Manchester, the Joint Vice Chair of Association of Women Barristers and the founder of Women in the Law UK. You can find out more about us at womeninthelawuk.com or search for Women in the Law UK on LinkedIn. Today you'll be hearing from Harold Brako, a finance litigation and dispute partner at Addleshaw Goddard. An experienced litigator, Harold works with clients across the UK, Africa and the Middle East. He also leads his firm's inclusion and diversity strategy and was shortlisted for the Diversity Champion Awards in 2019. Harold began by telling me how his heritage shaped his career.
Sally, you'll understand when I say that being the child of Africans, I didn't have much in the way of career choice. I was either going to be a lawyer, a doctor, or an accountant. Thankfully, I actually wanted to be a lawyer, so I haven't disappointed them in my career choice.
Fantastic. And Harold, I think you and I share the same heritage, if you like. You know, we're Black British lawyers with Ghanaian heritage. I wanted to really ask you about how you ended up in banking, if you like, of all the different areas that you could have specialised in. How did that come? Or commercial litigation? Actually, I always think about banking because I don't know much about it. How did you come to specialise in your area of law?
I always knew I wanted to be a litigator, mainly because I quite like arguing. I quite like the sound of my own voice, and it's probably no surprise to you at all. We've been friends for a long time. In another life, I actually thought about becoming a barrister. But I chose the solicitor route. I knew I wanted to do commercial litigation. When I joined DLA Piper, I fell into the banking litigation team and loved it. And loved the fact that I could do and practice everything that a commercial litigator did, but with a finance slant. So that's how I came into it. It helped also that my then boss, a chap named Stuart Plant, became a great mentor and sponsor. So that anchored me into banking litigation even more.
Yes. And of course, now you're at a global law firm that is Addleshaw Goddard. I won't go through every law firm that you've been. I don't think you've been to many, actually.
No.
But I do want to talk about, before Addleshaw's, your time at Shoesmiths, Manchester, where you were head of that office and built really a really remarkable culture in that firm, in that office. So much so that actually people used to say to me all the time, do you know Harold? By virtue of the fact that we both had the same colour skin. He's an extraordinary man, an extraordinary lawyer. I remember a judge saying to me, do you know Harold Brako? He's a brilliant lawyer. And I thought, no, no idea. So I just really wanted to ask you about why you have a certain type of leadership which is quite collaborative and keen to make change. How did you become the office manager, if you like, or head of the Shoesmiths office in Manchester? And what did you do as a leader to foster such trust and a culture there?
The Shoesmiths story came about unexpectedly because I loved being at DLA. I loved the kudos of being at DLA, which I think at the time by headcount was the largest law firm in the world.
Yeah, I think it still is.
I think it may still be. But I got a phone call from someone from representing Shoesmiths who asked if I wanted a coffee. And I quite arrogantly at the time said, why would I want a coffee with you guys? I have no intention of moving to Birmingham, because that's the only place I knew Shoesmiths from, that was close enough to the north. And there was a bit of a pregnant pause at the end of the line. And the person said, well, actually, We don't want you to move to Birmingham. We want you to open an office in Manchester. Now, that sort of opportunity doesn't come around very often, and the thought of building something from scratch was appealing. But even then, as I say, my anchor to DLA was very much my boss, Stuart, who was my protector, my mentor, my sponsor, and I felt a lot of loyalty to him. But he, at the start of his career at DLA, had come over from Leeds to start up the banking litigation team and then subsequently head up the commercial litigation department. And so I knew he would understand.
Yes.
And I weighed it up and I spoke to my wife. My wife pointed out that if I didn't do it, someone else would do it. And firstly, they probably wouldn't do it well. And secondly, if they did do it well or at all, then I would be kicking myself. So I rationalized the move by thinking, well, what's the worst that can happen? If it goes, to use a legal phrase, tits up, I can always come back to DLA.
Yes.
So I thought I'd take the plunge, and that's what led me to Shoesmiths. It was a very auspicious time.
Yeah.
My wife will tell you that she calls it my midlife crisis month because it was September 2008. Week 1, I did a half marathon. Week 2, I did a parachute jump. Week 3, I handed in my notice to DLA. And then week 4, Lehman Brothers happened. It was quite scary, a very scary time running up to opening the office. But yeah, opened the doors on the 4th of January 2009 with 6 people and didn't look back. And by the time I left in August 2016, there were 188 of us.
Wow.
So we've done something right.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it taught me lots of lessons. It taught me that despite the fact that Lehman Brothers had happened and there was a global crisis, global financial crisis, if you work hard enough and collaboratively, you can always make a success of things. There's always work out there. You just have to look harder and think out of the box.
Yes.
And those lessons have stayed with me throughout the rest of my career. And in terms of my leadership style, well, I've always tried to be inclusive.
Yes.
I have always tried to get the people I work with to have that frontier spirit and to collaborate with each other, regardless of whether you're an employment lawyer or a commercial lawyer or a commercial litigator. There's always work out there and there's always ways to help each other. And oftentimes we share the same clients, just different touch points at the same business or the same firm. So it was a matter of galvanizing all of that. And the other thing that I made sure of, and it is an easier thing to do when you're starting from scratch, I'm aware of that. But in the early days of recruitment at Shoesmiths, we made sure we recruited the people that were the right fit in terms of being collaborative and being people who were open-minded and being people that wanted to share success and help out if there was an issue.
Yeah.
So,
and learn.
And learn from each other.
Yeah.
So that shaped the way I led the office. And I am very proud of what we achieved because when I left, it wasn't just 188 bums on seats.
Yeah.
It was 188 very collaborative, young and ambitious people.
Yeah.
Who really wanted to go places and wanted to make a name in Manchester. And I think, they succeeded and continue that success, actually.
Absolutely. It's a very successful office.
And I was rewarded with 6 months garden leave of being at home and being paid to do nothing. Awesome.
Yes. And actually, I think I made you go speak in a lot of universities and a lot of schools about, being a Black successful partner in a law firm, which you did, which I'm very grateful to you all, and you've carried on doing. And just on that continuum, when you came to Addleshaw Goddard, I said earlier it was a global law firm. It is. You've been to DLA. You doubled their diversity statistics. Now, Addleshaw, looking at what they do, they're very good on gender, for instance, and LGBTQ. But you doubled the statistics by 100%, didn't you?
Certainly in the UK.
Yes.
I think I was at the time the only Black male partner that they got on board. I think I'm the only Black male partner that they have employed at that stage. We have made some inroads since, but yes, it was not lost on me. But equally, I knew Addleshaw's before I came. I knew people here. I knew the work the firm did.
Yes.
And I knew that they didn't have a Black partner, not because it was a conscious decision, just that it hadn't happened.
Yeah.
And I suppose the first thing that I rationalized in my mind was that, continuing, and you touched on it earlier, but you opened my eyes in terms of going out and trying to spread the word and bringing people through. So yes, I did spend my 6 months garden leave gainfully, following you and being your bag carrier at various talks.
When you could have just been playing golf or doing, I don't know, drinking, whatever people do on gardening.
Well, I did all of that as well. But yes, you opened my eyes, and I decided once I got here that I had to continue that. The first thing I did do was I thought I would reach out to up-and-coming lawyers and put on a panel event at the firm.
Yes, you did. And I mean, that I came to that panel event.
You were
a panelist. I think it was, in fact, it was a stand-up room only. I thought, well, I'll go because there'll be a few people there, maybe some nice food. And actually, it was standing room only.
Yes.
And what was really interesting and encouraging was actually you had partners from your firm there who were not Black, who understood the importance of what you were doing. So that was a starting point some time ago. Can you just share perhaps what you and the firm have been doing since? Because I have seen you be doing quite a lot of stuff up and down the country.
Yeah. And this isn't something that is just an Addleshaw Goddard thing. I think the whole legal sector is some way behind in terms of being diverse, whether it's diversity in gender, ethnicity, or even in social mobility.
Yes.
So Addleshaw's, to its credit, has recognised that and held its hands up and said, our statistics are no better than our brethren.
Yes.
And actually, now that we have actually opened our eyes to it, we should do something about it.
Yeah.
So for, I would say, well, certainly over a year ago, our last partners conference, and diversity in all its forms form the central tenet of that partners conference. And John Joyce, the managing partner, pledged to ensure that as a firm, as a business, we would tackle diversity and the issue of diversity in law, and we would start in our own backyard and do something about it. So the D&I strand of our business was started, and we have 2 partners for each strand. So there is a strand for social mobility, a strand for gender, a strand for ethnicity, a strand for LGBTQ+. And we had already started to make some headway in terms of improving ourselves as a business, but also going out to the wider world and promoting the fact that the legal sector had to be more diverse.
Yes.
And my part of the strand being ethnicity, we were doing some good things. And then, of course, the pandemic happened.
Yes.
And the tragic events in the States with George Floyd happened.
Yes.
And that actually probably accelerated the pace that we went at.
Yeah.
Because of the pandemic, it meant that everyone was in lockdown, everyone was at home. So we had a captive audience. And because of the momentum that the George Floyd murder and Black Lives Matter has had, that helped us in terms of really catapulting what we were trying to do at the firm. So we started off by looking at our own statistics.
Right.
We publish an annual report called the Inclusion Report. And that has in it all our stats in all their forms. One thing I was quite vocal about was that the use of the term BAME.
Yes.
Which I understand why it's used, but equally I do believe it's a bit of a statistical convenience.
Yes.
So one of the things that I was vocal about that, to its credit, AG have taken on is actually separating the different strands of BAME.
Yes.
Because there is a problem in the legal sector overall with black male representation and then with black female representation. But that's quite good at a certain level and then tails off.
Yes.
So it's good to actually know all these statistics because they don't lie. So we started out by immediately publishing our current stats.
Did you? That's so brave.
Which isn't good reading. But then we have pledged that by 2023, those stats will be exponentially increased.
Yes.
And that keeps us honest.
Yeah, it does.
But it's not just a case of making that pledge and hoping that it will happen by some magic. It's about then working out a strategy as to how to get to those new figures, which includes things like the firm has or is doing away in its recruitment of trainees with A-level requirements. There's going to be blind recruitment at certain levels. We have teamed up with Rare Recruitment, who specialize in ethnic lawyers. And we have teamed up with organizations such as BSN and Interlaw as well.
Brilliant.
And then internally, what we do recognize is that it's not just about attracting new ethnic talent.
No.
It's also about retaining the talent that we have.
Yeah.
We've teamed up with quite recently with a business called Challenge Consultancy, who have come in to review the firm from the angle of its ethnic contingent.
Yes.
And then to tailor courses for the allies and also the rest of the firm, such as unconscious bias, etc.
Yeah.
So that internally we do get our own house in order.
Yes, absolutely.
So we have done that. We've also Black History Month.
We're still in October, so it's still Black History Month.
And it's absolutely fantastic here. In the years I've been here now, which is approaching 4 years, I've never seen this happen. And I've never seen so much weight behind a cause.
Yes.
The firm has been good in throwing its weight behind the LGBTQ plus and also gender, but not like this. Yes. So we had National Inclusion Week, followed hot on the heels by Black History Month. So in the run-up or during National Inclusion Week and the run-up to Black History Month, we had John Amici here.
Oh, yes, OBE. Yeah.
OBE. Yes.
OBE. Well, he calls himself the Jedi Diaries. I follow him a lot. Yes, amazing man.
He was unbelievable, fascinating, and just explained very complex issues in a very simple way. And the traction that he got with all of my colleagues in this firm, whether, regardless of gender or creed or color, was amazing. And it got people talking, which is exactly what the firm wanted to happen.
Yes.
Is that it got people who are quite focused on their work and their business, actually looking outside of their silos and talking about how they can also engage.
Absolutely.
And the plan is to do more of this.
Yeah.
Black History Month is just 1 month of the year.
Of course it is.
These talks are going to go on throughout the year. And then every day we have screensavers in the office. And each week has 4 different Black legends who have made a difference.
Wow.
So, last week was Nelson Mandela, Bob Marley, the usual suspects. I think this week is the sports stars. So Linford Christie, Dame Kelly Holmes.
Wow.
Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
And next week will be a different 4. And then every day, and this is my brainchild, so I'm very, very proud of it. Every day we have what I call Google Doodles.
Oh, yes.
So at 7:30 every morning, there is an AG bulletin, and there will be a historical Black figure who most people will not have heard of.
I love that.
And it will have a little blurb about what they did and what they achieved. So there was Howard Lewis Latimer, who didn't invent the light bulb, but he made the filament that makes light bulbs as powerful as they are.
Yeah.
And you had another woman who invented CCTV, another Black woman who invented groundbreaking laser surgery, which is used today still.
Wow.
You had someone who invented the automatic lift doors.
Wow.
And the list goes on.
Gosh, I thought I was knowledgeable.
It goes on.
Wow.
I did all the research for it, and I learnt so much in terms of Black people who have made a mark, who have made a lasting mark in the world with their innovation. But alas, have never been celebrated for it or have been forgotten.
Yes.
So, it's every day that drops in an inbox. And the amount of emails I now get from my colleagues who say they really look forward to the next person every day and learn just that little bit, it has been fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
We also have... we have an intranet called The Source, and there's always a headline. So it's divided into squares, and there's a headline square. And the firm, for the first time ever, have allowed Black History Month to have the headline spot every day for the month. We've also changed our colours on LinkedIn and on all our social media.
Yes, you did. Yeah, didn't you do that for LGBTQ?
Yes.
Was it for Pride as well? I noticed you did that amongst, lots of law firms did it too.
Yeah, so that lots of law firms changed the colour, including us, to the rainbow.
Yes, yes.
So this time we have changed our colours to the red, gold and green for the month.
Oh, right.
I'm incredibly impressed with the efforts that have been put in internally to make Black History Month really impressionable this year. And the idea is to continue this every year. Absolutely. What we have done as well, and the credit for making Black History Month go so smoothly is actually with the AG network. I think we realized very quickly that having 2 partners just trying to push the ethnicity seam of diversity was nigh on impossible in a firm of this size. So we set up a network, which we called AG Fusion.
Wow.
Which, isn't that imaginative in terms of names, but it was more about the doing as opposed to the naming.
Yes.
And AG Fusion Network has a chair and a co-chair and members in each office.
Right.
And they decide what events they want to hold, whether it's panel events throughout the year or any type of event or a speaker event. So
that's really
the firm
impressive.
is actually making great strides to improve itself, but equally to recognise that the legal sector has to change, and it starts at home, obviously.
Absolutely. And let's be frank, it's not just a moral argument. People who listen to this podcast, all 30,000 of you, know I've talked about this on several interviews. It's not just a moral argument. It's good for business. McKinsey's told us that. Diversity is good for business. And I've looked at AG's profits and you ain't doing badly. So, I think it's commendable and it's good for firms to aspire to that. I wonder, Harold, you've been doing all this work and the firm has been doing great work really to embrace it. What do you do for well-being? All this takes a lot of energy. You're a damn good lawyer. And, you're still working on top of all this diversity stuff, which is the irony often, isn't it? That it's actually an extra you're doing on top of doing the day job and billable hours. And you've got 3 sons, a wife who's also a lawyer, not here. What do you do for your well-being? Because, let's face it, litigation, burnout, long hours, transactions, never mind a bar like me. What do you do to try and think about your well-being and perhaps, those who you supervise or train?
You'll be very disappointed to hear that I have become a mammal. So a middle-aged man in Lycra, which, I bought a pedal bike and I go out every Sunday and I actually really enjoy it. And I decided to get a bike because it's low impact. I used to like running. But when you reach a certain age, your joints just, the body, the mind is willing, but the body isn't, let's say. Cycling is a bit easier on the joints, but not so much on the backside.
Yeah.
But I cycle at least once a week. Other than that, it's Netflix.
Yes. But what would you like to do? I remember interviewing a partner, I think it was Ross Beaver, and I know she's particularly poor on well-being. So I've rephrased the question, which is, what would you like to do? And she would like an allotment. I must text her to find out, actually, if she's been doing a lot of gardening during the lockdown. In an ideal world, if you had more time and maybe you weren't an equity partner, a senior leader, managing teams, all the rest of it, are you into gardening, or have you got like an extra hobby on top of the cycling that you might like to do? Don't say knitting. I can't imagine you as a knitter.
I'd love to play golf well. And you might recall, whilst I was on gardening leave, I started to play a little golf.
Yes.
But I'm hopeless. I don't have the patience for it. So golf is a game that is very mental, and when I play badly, there's no coming back from that. And so I get very frustrated. So I'd love to play golf. But my childhood love, played a lot of rugby actually when I was a youngster. I played rugby union and rugby league.
Wow.
But my actual childhood love was tennis.
Oh, really?
And it's something that I wish I had pursued a bit more, but it always clashed with athletics, and I was quite a good runner, so I was in the athletics team. So I couldn't play tennis at school, but I wish I'd pursued it outside of school, because I love playing tennis. I also love watching tennis still.
Yes. No, we all love tennis. And Harold, I always ask this question, but just in terms of your interests, reading and music. I know you're a big Seal fan amongst loads of other music, because we've talked about this.
Yeah.
But What if you have a favourite book and why? And also, I don't know if you watch much television, but whether you have a favourite fictional character, not necessarily from television, but, book or series or whatever. So a favourite book and a favourite fictional lawyer.
Right. So favourite book. There's too many. So
I know. Everyone says that.
I'll give you one from each genre, I suppose.
Okay.
So from a sporting angle, my favourite book is Andre Agassi, Open.
Yes, that is actually a good book.
It's it's one of my all-time favourite books. Great read.
Yeah.
And very honest.
Yes.
And shows what you can achieve just through sheer hard work.
Yeah.
And then autobiography, it sounds cheesy, but it is Nelson Mandela and Long Walk to Freedom.
Yeah.
You can't beat it. It's just, in terms of life lessons and an education in someone who is completely selfless and has qualities above and beyond anybody you'll ever meet is incredible.
Yeah.
And then science fiction wise, there's a book called Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut.
Wow.
That's a good read because it's very futuristic, but interestingly, a lot of what Kurt Vonnegut wrote about, there's another one of his books called Welcome to the Monkey House, which is lots of short stories. But as futuristic as his books were when I was reading them as a young adult, a lot of what he wrote about has come to fruition.
Oh, gosh.
So there we go.
Interesting.
So in terms of, was it a fictional lawyer?
Yeah, a fictional lawyer. I mean, I don't know about you. Probably more your parents watch more legal dramas or read more legal stuff, The Lawyer from A Tale of Two Cities, Cousin Vinny, whatever. My guests always say. But I just wondered if you had a favourite fictional lawyer.
I do. And it's not one that you expect. I'd like to be quite lofty and say it's Atticus Finch, but it's not. It's Harvey Specter from Suits.
I was not expecting that. And do you just enjoy those programs?
I enjoy Suits. I'm actually a recent Suits convert.
Yes.
It's not something I would watch, but my sister made me watch it, and I've been gripped ever since. And I love it because after a long day, particularly during the pandemic when there's been a lot of home working, and it's very difficult to separate my home life from my work life because it's all in the one place.
Yes.
Suits has been great because I can completely switch off.
Yeah.
And it's just nice trash TV.
Yes.
And it's a good switcher offer before going to bed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, lots of guests say Jessica Pearson, and certainly people in my book. Yeah. I just like her clothes. I wish I had the height and, the money for that wardrobe and the walk, they all walk like they're in a catwalk, not a law firm.
Yeah.
No, good choice. Harold, I want to ask you, you've referred to the pandemic, which has been going on for the last 6 months and likely to continue as we record this. And I want to ask you really about advice for young people entering the profession, because there are difficulties, but I think there are opportunities.
Yeah, and thanks to you, I have done quite a few panel talks, and so I'm asked the question often.
Yes.
And what I do find is that the core answer remains the same, although, you've got to move with the times as well. But essentially it's this. One thing I learned very quickly, and it was a life lesson from my training principal, a chap called, quite entertainingly called Ian Lawless. But Ian, on my second day, called me in and said, "You and I have much in common." Now, bearing in mind I'm black and he's white, I looked at him quizzically, and he, sensing my slight surprise,
Yes.
explained that you are black and he was ginger. And Ian was a ginger hair, great big bushy ginger beard. And he said, people will remember you because there aren't that many ginger-haired, full-bearded ginger lawyers in Manchester. And unfortunately, there aren't that many black lawyers in Manchester. So people will remember you, judges will remember you. So you make sure when you go out there, you put your best foot forward. That advice never left me. It also informs what I tell some young up-and-coming lawyers as well, is that, don't worry about being different. Don't worry about standing out. Use it to your advantage because, most of Manchester knows me. I don't know the names of everyone in Manchester, but they know me because there aren't that many black lawyers called Harold around.
No.
So use that to your advantage. But in so doing, you do have to be good at what you do. Hone your craft.
Yes.
Hone your craft. Be the best you can be. And know that people will remember you and will gravitate towards you because of that, because of your difference as well.
Yes.
I would also say, I always say that it's very simple. A mentor is someone who has the knowledge, who will share with you that knowledge. A sponsor is a person who has power and will use that power for you. So I was very lucky early in my career to have a series of sponsors. Ian Lawless, I mentioned.
Yes.
I would also say Charles Kahn, who taught me an awful lot. It was very hard work, but he taught me how to be a very, very good lawyer and about the business of law as well.
Yes.
And Stuart Plant, who I always revere because he was a great mentor in that he shared his knowledge with me, but he was a great sponsor as well. Some of the things that he did behind the scenes for me, for my career progression, he didn't have to do. And he did it without wanting anything in return and continues to do it, even though I've left the firm, even though I've left him.
Even though you're a grown man.
Yes. So, look out for sponsors and mentors. And again, they don't just fall in your lap. You've got to seek these people out.
Yes.
And I would say that's definitely a life lesson that they should pick up. And have a plan. One thing that has always struck me is I'm of the Will Smith, as in the actor.
Fresh Prince.
A variety in that Will Smith's father famously calls him the luckiest bee in the world. And I'm a bit like that in that my plan was to qualify as a lawyer and please my parents. And beyond that, I didn't have a plan. And I've had to sort of go back and review my position and then make a plan. But what I have realized is that if you have a plan to begin with, you'll go further quicker.
Yes.
So have a plan.
Have a plan. Okay. I suppose being adaptable as well to whatever that plan might be.
Yeah. As with any plan, it's about being adaptable. And also in terms of executing that plan, that career plan, you've got to be thick-skinned and you've got to take disappointment on the chin at times. You've got to call out situations when they need calling out.
Yeah.
And you've got to pick your battles because if you stress over every battle that has to be fought and every slight that you take, you'll get nowhere. No path to success is straight. It's always meandering, let's say.
Yes.
the one thing I would also say is about giving back. Well, once you get to a certain stage, and it doesn't mean you have to become a partner to give back, or whatever stage you get to as a trainee, you can give back by helping the paralegals.
Yeah.
You know, as a newly qualified lawyer, you can give back by helping a trainee, and vice versa. It goes on and on.
Yeah.
But always give back. Always look for opportunities to help out and give back, because that helps build your own brand and your network as well. So those are the key things I would advise.
Fantastic. Now, Harold, I know you've got to go off and give blood. I'm feeling inadequate as we speak. But I wondered, you mentioned before about Ian Lawless. I can't stop saying his name now. You know, your friend, the colleague who with ginger hair. But I don't want people to get the impression that you've just had an easy, charmed life throughout your career, because it hasn't been, has it?
No.
You know, and Alexandra Wilson, at the time of recording, who was a brilliant young woman at the bar, mistaken for a defendant. That's brought back to the core just when we're all kind of coping and carrying on with our careers, you know, whatever our background or ethnicity. Was mistaken as a defendant purely because she was black. And I just wondered if you had incidents like that in your career. Well, you will have done. So, because I don't want, my listeners to think, oh gosh, what an easy...
What a gilded life.
Yeah, what a gilded life is lived.
No.
On the contrary. And so I just wondered if you could share some of those and maybe how you got over them.
Yeah, but it goes back to what I've just said about picking your battles and being thick-skinned.
Yeah.
The incident with Alexandra Wilson that you have mentioned opened up a Pandora's box for me because so many of those slights happened to me.
Yes.
Going to court and people thinking you're a defendant, or that's normal. Going to Tesco's in my work suit and being asked where people could find coffee is normal. Coming to work on the train and watching people on a packed train who would rather stand than sit next to me, again, is normal. But it's not my problem.
Yeah.
And that's the way I have always tackled these things. It's not my problem. You don't want to sit next to me on a packed train. Fine, I'll have more room.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not been plain sailing. Have there been instances where I have felt slighted or where I felt that my career could have gone quicker had I been white? Yes, I do. But I think the trick is not to dwell on those instances and to push on. There are some who would say that perhaps I should make a song and dance of things. But actually, by the time I've made a song and dance of things, and my kids have actually taught me an awful lot in that you ask them to unload the dishwasher. And it's that sort of commentary around, well, in the time that it's taken you to bellyache about doing it, you could have done it and been on your Xbox. And it's exactly the same principle. It's just move on and get on with your life and don't let it be your problem. I did see a webinar recently with Trevor James. He was a contemporary of mine, although he was more senior to me at DLA. He's a tax lawyer. And he was a partner at DLA. And again, in terms of role models, it was great that at DLA I could see a black partner because it gave me hope. Yeah. But Trevor then went off and became the managing partner of MoFo, or Morris Forster, big American firm, which is no mean feat.
No.
And in this webinar with Trevor James, he recounts similar stories of when he was a newly qualified, not at DLA, but at the firm preceding DLA. And he was given some sterling work by his supervising partner. And it wasn't until several years later he found out that the work he'd been given from these various departments had at first bellyached about the fact that he was doing the work as a young black lawyer, and his supervising partner shielded him from that and said, he's the best lawyer I know. And then when the work was done, and these same people who bellyached actually came back and ate their words. And it's that sort of thing that I've had, you've had.
Yeah.
And again, you learn a lot from the things we tell our kids. And, I always say to my, unfortunately, I have 3 boys, no girls.
I don't know if that's actually a blessing, quite frankly. I've got 1 girl, 2 boys. She's the difficult one.
But having watched them play football in horizontal rain and snow, whenever they get upset because the opposing team have called them something or have been a bit physical, my response is always, well, answer them with your feet. If you score more goals than them or outperform them, they'll soon revere you. And that's what happens. And that's, again, it's the same with our careers, answer with your brilliance.
Yes.
But yeah, it happens to us all. It still happens. And, there are several ways of dealing with it. And my way of dealing with it is to ensure it's not my problem.
Yeah.
But call things out when they need to be called out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Harold, we're coming to the end. As I said, I know you need to go and give blood, so I don't want to stop you from doing that. I wonder what's next. Might you become either the next managing partner here or elsewhere? Have you thought about going further? Or the bench? There are many black High Court judges, or none is the correct answer at present. Have you thought about that? You don't have to reveal it to me and our 30,000 listeners. But I just wonder, what's next for you? Or memoirs?
What's next for me? I sort of set myself up for that question in my earlier answer by pointing out that I've never had a plan.
Yes, yeah.
Which is why I urge everyone else to have a plan. And I honestly don't have a plan. I came to Addleshaw's and my plan was to make a success of my banking litigation practice, which is happening. And the acid test to know that it's happening is that I'm still a leading individual in both chambers and Legal 500. But my banking litigation teams are both tier 1 in Legal 500 and chambers.
Yes.
And before I came here and when I joined, I think the team were tier 3. So, that is a good indicator that we're doing something right. But, I always try and overachieve in that sense. And I think there's still a way to go.
Yes.
So, yeah, my plans are just to make this a roaring success and actually to see the people that I work with do well in their lives and their careers.
Yes.
Because in terms of building the Shoesmith's office from 6 to 188 and also working with some great people, some of whom followed me to Addleshaw's.
Yes.
My biggest happiness is actually seeing these people thrive and being the best that they can be. So, yeah, the plan is for us as a team to do well. I'm sorry to disappoint you by not saying that I want to conquer the world, but one step at a time.
No, and spoken like a true leader, seeing others thrive and be the best they can be, I think is as good a plan as any. Harold Brako, thank you very much for talking law with me, Sally Penni. Thank you again for listening to Talking Law with me, Sally Penni. You can find me on Twitter at SallyPenni1. Please do take a moment to leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts and do subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Thank you again to Addleshaw Goddard for supporting this episode, and thanks also to Sam Walker and our production team at What Goes On Media. Bye-bye for now.